Good morning everyone. Bonjour à tous. Bienvenue sur ce Cluster Montagne Talks. Welcome to this Cluster Montagne Talks event with about the Western Canadian ski resort. I am Kaline Osaki, International Manager of Cluster Montagne. You are 112 participant auditors registered for this event from Canada, France, and Switzerland. We will see if everyone is entered. So we will spend 1 hour and a half all together with 4 key speakers: André Quenneville, General Manager from Mount NORQUAY; Darcy Alexander, General Manager from Sun Peaks Resort; Kim Locke, Vice President of Strategy and Corporate Affairs from Lake Louise; Doug MACFARLANE, Vice President of Mountain Operations from Whistler BLACKCOMB Resort; and Christopher Nicholson, CEO of CWSAA. I just let now Benoît Robert, Director of Cluster Montagne, say a short introduction speech.
Thank you, Kaline. Good morning, everyone. Bonsoir la France. I'm Benoît Robert. I'm the Director of the Cluster Montagnes. Let me say some welcome words on behalf of Cluster Montagnes and our President, Mr. Patrick Grantery. We are pleased today to organize this international and digital event with the collaboration of CWSAA and 4 great Western Canadian ski resorts. Thank you for your participation. We hope that this video conference will provide you useful information to everyone and that it will help maintaining the links between the players of our wonderful mountains tourism industry. I let now Kaline, our international manager, carry out this event. All the best to each of you. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thanks, Benoît, for this welcome words. I would like now just to introduce very shortly our organization, as I think all participants, above all from Canada, don't know us. Cluster Montagne is a French non-profit organization. We are located in the French Alps in Savoie region, close to all the biggest French ski areas, which are Three Valleys, Paradis Ski, Espace Ski, for example. To summarize, we are a network gathering the major players and stakeholders of mountain tourism industry in France. We count on 240 members who are companies, mountain territories, institutions, universities, and research centers. Our mission is to support the development and the performance of all mountain resorts from throughout the world. In practical terms, we organize expertise mission in France and abroad to meet the mountain resorts and analyze on-site the activity and model. We host many international delegations in France a lot during Mountain Planet International Fair. We hosted several times Canadian delegations, and we cooperate with other mountain tourism organizations, as today with CWSAA and Christopher, and with countries which are needing support and with whom we can have common interests and issues. So Cluster Montagne Talks today, what is the aim of the event? The main objective is to share news and information in this specific context. We believe that especially now we need to share and keep contact with each other. So you have seen the program of the event. I've sent the program to everyone by email. We will begin first with a speech from CWSAA, and we will start with a first roundtable with the presentation of the 4 resorts intervening today. So thank you. I left a few guidelines. Just please check that the camera and microphone are deactivated, and you can use, of course, the chat part of Zoom to share your remarks, your questions, and just to say hello. And rename you, please, if your name and your company do not appear correctly on Zoom interface. So now I'll let Christopher introduce CWSAA and the Western Canadian ski resort.
Well, thank you, Kaline, and thank you, Benoît and Kaline, both for this opportunity for both Canadian colleagues and colleagues in France and Switzerland to be able to share our best practices and exchange. This is an important time And we've done a lot of work with partners in the United States, as well as within Australia and New Zealand. And so this today is a real particular opportunity. So thank you again for sharing and your interest. I will touch base just to provide a little framework for everybody. Similar to Cluster Montagne, Canada West Ski Areas Association is a nonprofit association that serves ski areas in Western Canada. And the primary focus areas are risk management, as well as advocacy with government and education. So today definitely follows in the education camp. And again, thank you. Colleen, next slide, please, if I may. Within Canada, just in terms of context, there are 237 ski areas or downhill ski areas, plus there are many other helicopter skiing, as well as cat skiing and backcountry ski touring operations across the country, but especially in Western Canada. Across the country, we have a common measurement is skier visits, and we host 200 million skier visits per year. So that will vary based on seasons, and it always seems to vary east and west. There are two different parts of the country. Colleen, if I can, to the next slide. Within Western Canada, which includes 4 provinces and 1 Northern Territory, Western Canada will serve about half of Canada's skier visits at 9.4 million skier visits. And in terms of the economic contribution to the economy, around $2.5 billion Canadian, or 1.6 billion euros, is the size or the economic contribution to the economy. There is around 26,000 jobs within those countries, within those provinces, and the majority of them are within British Columbia and Alberta, which are the 2 western provinces. So when we talk about the Canadian Rockies or the Coast Mountains and all points in between, those are on an international destination perspective, those are common areas that people will come in, and others will speak to that later today. And in terms of the taxes to government, there is almost 400 million or 2.5 million euro, which is particularly important when we're advocating to government right now in terms of the importance of supporting the industry for the in our current COVID-19 pandemic. So that is an overview of the industry. I'll turn it over to the ski areas, and I'll be with you shortly. Thanks, Kaylin.
Thanks, Christopher, for this very quick and efficient overview. So we will start now the first roundtable to introduce the results. So we will start first with Kim from Lake Louise. I let you take the voice.
Good morning and bonsoir. Thank you very much for having me, Colleen et Benoit. My name is Kim Locke. I'm with the Lake Louise Ski Resort. A lot of you in Europe will know us, and you're familiar with us from watching the World Cup races that we host each year, with a brief pause this year, unfortunately, but we're looking forward to next year. We are located in Western Canada in Banff National Park. Would you be able to switch the slide, Colleen? I just put a little map to situate us for those of you that are not familiar with the regional ski areas. We have 3 ski areas in Banff National Park, Lake Louise and NORQUAY. Andre is with us today from NORQUAY. And then the other one is Banff Sunshine. Together, we're the Ski Big 3, and we are part of the Icon Pass as a destination for Icon. We're not connected by lifts, but we do have a good bus system that runs throughout our destination, and international visitors can ski all 3 resorts on 1 ticket. Between us, we've got almost 8,000 acres of skiing, and Lake Louise itself is over 4,200 acres, or 1,700 hectares, and we are one of the larger resorts in North America. We are an international destination resort, but we also cater a lot to local and regional skiers, of course. Our mix will be anywhere from 90% local and regional at the beginning and the end of the season. We've got quite a long season. It's 6 months, runs from early November to early May. And then in our busy times and holidays, we are over 40% of skiers that arrive by air internationally. We're located 2 hours from Calgary on a very easy drive, no mountainous highway. It's just a really flat, well-maintained highway, so we are very easily accessible. In normal times, Calgary's got direct flights from all over the world, 8 or 9 hours to Europe. Who knows what will happen this year, but we are typically very easy to get to. Most of our international guests come from the US and Europe. What's unique about us is that we are a real pristine wilderness setting. Being in a national park, we're not commercialized at all. And we don't have a town at the bottom of our resort. We don't have condos. We don't have hotels. There's nothing commercialized. So it just offers a very awe-inspiring experience when you're standing at the top and looking over the valley at the beautiful mountains, just like things were 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago. It's not similar to anything in the world, really. It's fantastic. It's a really remote feeling and very awe-inspiring for our guests. There is a small village in Lake Louise at the valley bottom, about 5 minutes from our ski resort. It's got about 900 hotel rooms, so some overnight guests do stay there. And then the next largest center with a number of hotel rooms, thousands of rooms, is Banff. The town of Banff is about 40 minutes away. And then if people want to go further afield, the town of Canmore is outside the national park. It's about 1 hour away, and it's got private rentals and Airbnb, which Banff and Lake Louise don't have because they're in a national park. In Banff National Park, winter is actually the low season, so most visitors actually come to the park in summer. So in winter, we have a lot more availability of hotel rooms and the prices are lower. So that's definitely a benefit to our visitors. We're quite a large resort. We have a lot of room for people to spread out, which will hopefully help us this winter. Our yearly visitation is in the range of 600,000, with approximately 75% of those visitors in the winter. We have targeted summer as a big growth area going forward, and we have recently had a master plan approved, which allows us to greatly improve our summer offerings. This past winter, COVID ended our season in mid-March, just like everywhere else, right before our busy spring break period. April's actually getting much busier as well over the past few years. So it was, we did take quite a hit because of that. We were on track to have a record-breaking year if COVID hadn't happened. And so, you know, we're cautiously optimistic for the future. This winter, who knows how it will play out. We're prepared for any scenario. And it also depends if the international borders remain closed or if they remain open, or if they do open at some point. But we're prepared for a COVID winter, and we will see what the future brings.
Thanks, Kim, for this introduction. Very detailed. There's Jean-Pierre from Scaping, who is one of the French company working in Banff also. He's sharing in the comments the link to see, you know, the webcam. So if you want to see some landscape from Lake Louise, you can follow the link. Thank you, Kim. So now we will have the we will have the introduction of Sun Peaks by Darcy.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity to make a presentation and learn from questions and answers about the industry and what's going on in Europe today as well. I have a lot of slides in this presentation. The idea was to make it visual and impactful that way, to tell the story rather than me do a lot of talking. Sun Peaks, just as a premise, is the relatively new kid on the block from a destination ski resort in Canada. You see on the slide here, we're in the middle of British Columbia, southern interior. We're about, well, we're between Whistler and Banff, put it simple. We're on the Trans-Canada Highway, half hour off it. So that's that one. Next slide, please. This is a picture of our village at the foot of the three mountains, our main ski mountains in the thing. You'll see from the pictures that it's, to use a European term, Sun Peaks is one of the few resorts in Canada that you can ski in a 360-degree, so-called white circle, and back into the village. It's a unique thing in North America, and we have a lot of accommodation, which we'll get into as we go along here. Next slide. This shows the mountain from the other angle in the summertime. We do a lot of summer business in hiking and mountain biking tour buses. It's a major part of our business. Next slide, please. This is, we have a long-term vision of our ownership. This is really a picture that shows another angle of the resort, but I wanted to talk about here. The vision for Sun Peaks is probably not to be the biggest ski resort in the world, but to be one of the best. Next slide, please. Another lovely powder shot from up on the alpine ski terrain at Sun Peaks. And our vision to our guests is how to come and feel like you belong at Sun Peaks, feel like it's home. Next slide. As a relatively new resort, being only 30 years being developed, we're in the midst of phase 2 of our development plan, which is approved by the provincial government. All this growth you see that phase 4 there is permitted under our master plan. You obviously have to go through the detailed approval processes, but the overall master plan is there. Right now, we're having a neighborhood of just under 10,000 beds, and we can handle about 9,000 skiers a day on our ski terrain. Next slide. So at present, Sun Peaks is the second largest ski area in Canada by ski terrain. We have about 4,270 acres of ski terrain. Next slide. That puts us on this graph of North American ski resorts about number 7. In our master plan, if everybody stayed the same acreage, and I don't know what that is, we would have about 6,000 acres of ski terrain, which would put us number 3 in North America in terms of terrain size. Next slide. Our village is very central, as you could probably take from the pictures. 3 distinct mountains. Right now, we're doing about 400,000 skier visits a year, another 100,000+ annual visits in the summer, and growing very rapidly. So next slide. So these slides are some things about growth that the cluster was about Sun Peaks. So right now we're local markets around 40%. British Columbia regional drive. We call a local market, by the way, within a 2-hour drive. There's 2 interior cities within that 2-hour drive, Kamloops and Kelowna. North American markets, about 15% of our, and international 17% and growing. We do a lot of German-speaking Europe and a lot of Australia, New Zealand, and west coast of the US. Next slide, please. This is just a mountain metrics. It shows you our trail map, shows you the 3 mountains, 6 meters of annual snowfall, 13 lifts, 137 trails. If you were to look at this detailed information, I'm sure Kalina can give you the slide deck. Next slide, please. This is one was highlighted as a hot item for French ski resorts. You see the first tile there, village accommodation. There's 8,000 beds in our village that are nightly rentable. Hot beds are probably half of that number. Warm beds are about a quarter of that number. So around 6,000 beds available for nightly rental in Sun Peaks, and that's mandated under our master plan. And then it just tells you some other things about our village there. It's a very European style village. I'll show you some pictures of that next. Next slide. So this is our village, pedestrian friendly. It's designed to be, there's no vehicles in the village core. All the parking is underground for the hotels and accommodation in the village. We have about 1,000 hotel rooms in our village alone. So next slide, please. This is the village in the summertime, and Clock Tower, one of our main squares. There are 3 village squares at this point and more planned as we move along through the development. Next slide. Another shot of some nice alpine skiing. Next slide.
Yeah, these are just pictures, just to Andre and see the results.
This is 40 mount there's about 40 plus kilometers of Nordic trails inside the resort and a bunch more outside. Next slide.
I think it's okay.
Okay.
It was the last one. Thanks.
I know I was pushing it in terms of time. No problem.
Yeah, you will detail more the summer activity during the second roundtable. Thank you, Darcy. So we will pass next to Andre from NORQUAY. Are you here, Andre?
Yes. Thanks, Darcy. And I certainly won't have as many slides. Bonjour, Caline et Benoît. Bonjour à tous les opérateurs de ski au Québec et en France. Thanks for having me. I'm here to represent probably what will be one of the smaller ski areas in the presentation here. So it'll give you a bit more of an idea of regional area. So Mount NORQUAY is just over an hour drive from Calgary, city of over 1 million people. So mainly regional ski area destination, skiing representing only about 10% of our overall visitation. We operate both summer and winter. Summertime Via Ferrata, which has been operating throughout this summer and has been quite successful with all the new measures in place. And in the winter time, obviously skiing and snow tubing. La glissade sur tube. Our ski area is has very large ski racing programs, so lots of clubs and programs. And then we also are, unlike the other areas that are presenting today, like I said, much smaller, only 4 chairlifts, 3 quads, 1 double, an 8-lane tubing park, and only minutes from Banff. So we're 6 kilometers outside the town of Banff. Kim gave a good representation of where we're situated. Obviously very close to that huge hotel base, lots of rooms. Summertime being the most busy season for sure, which is definitely beneficial for all our summer operations. And on the mountain, we have 3 outlets, 3 lodges, 3 food outlets, including a Cliff House Bistro, which is at the top of our sightseeing chairlift. We are working on many plans for the future to change how people visit NORQUAY, and something that will definitely keep moving towards throughout all these times. Our total visitation is around 200,000 annually between summer, winter, and snow tubing. So once again, I mean, we aren't the largest ski area presenting today, but I think there's many other operators out there who might relate to our situation, and I'm definitely happy to be a part of this, and thanks for having me.
Thanks, Andre. And last one is Whistler. Everybody knows Whistler, but Doug, can you remind us who you are? What are your values? Sorry, your microphone is not active. Okay.
Thank you very much for giving us a chance to engage as a ski industry. You know, we do that quite well, I believe, with Canada West. We also do that within Vail Resorts. We spend a lot of time communicating best practices, and now this opportunity to work together with France and Europe and share, which is thank you. So just brief stats. I didn't really have much for slides for Whistler, but these are kind of the salient points. You know, we're not very far. We're 126 kilometers from Vancouver International Airport, 2.4 million residents there on the coastal mountains. It's a very coastal day here today with lots of, we'll probably get about 100 millimeters of rain today. Here, but it does bring a lot of snowfall, and that's what we're known for, this coastal snowpack here on the south coast. So we do get a lot of snow. We've got the largest avalanche control plan in North America. We operate on just over 8,000 acres. We've got 200 plus trails, 17 restaurants. The elevations are there, but our lift capacity, so 69, almost 70,000 per hour is our lift capacity. And historically, we're 2.5, 2.6 million skier visits. We operate a very significant summer sightseeing business with our peak to peak and the Raven's Eye up on the peak chair, as well as the kind of world-class bike park for our summer. So the summer business is very important for us. Where we're located is just, like I said, 126 kilometers out of Vancouver. Population here in Whistler is about 12,000 people. And we've got a lot of beds, 30,000 beds available to us here as a resort. There's a mix of beds there with between pensions, condos, hostels, as well as the village itself with over 200 restaurants and retail. Maybe we can just talk a little bit about the impact. For us here, to close the resort, making the decision across all of Vail Resorts and Whistler on Saturday, March 14th was a big decision with all the information coming in around the world, what was going on, and our wanting to, safety was paramount in all of this. We were among the first in our industry to shut down. We're definitely right in the heart of our business when that happened. Very difficult decision. It was, viewed maybe that at the time it was a poor decision by some, and others is hailed as a good decision to get out front and close the resorts and stop, the spread of COVID and just kind of shrink back. So it's that was just before all of the resorts in the U.S. were shut down with stay-at-home orders. Originally, we were thinking we were just going to reopen in May, and this wasn't going to be a big deal. This wasn't something that was going to be a long-term impact. That was our original thought, and obviously, we've been proven wrong many times. So we put our energy towards getting ready for the summer operation at that point.
Okay. Thank you, Doug, for your introduction and for sharing the COVID crisis impact on Whistler specifically. Christopher, you can make a global overview of this impact on the Western Canadian ski resort. How was the impact?
Thank you, Kayleen. As Doug mentioned, challenging is an obvious word, and I think every ski area operator around the world felt that. As a sort of an overview, I think what I'm about to say is probably common interest, but the immediate closure of the ski areas within Western Canada. In some provincial jurisdictions, it was mandated by government to close, and in other jurisdictions, it was a voluntary closure. As the industry shut down middle of March, the impact was varied based on ski areas. Within Western Canada, we have some smaller community ski areas that might regularly close middle or end of March. And for those areas, the impact or the timing of the closure was not as great. But then we have other areas that carry well into May of operation. So as an overall industry, we lost about 25% of our season. And so the impact varies on the actual resort, depending on their geography, length of season, and their market mix. The next phases that the industry went through, for some, represent probably the most challenging in their professional careers. And largely that's because we're dealing with people and people that we care about very much. So there was after the ski areas closed, there was the immediate need for laying off of seasonal staff and things like staff accommodation or helping people get home. So if we had international workers, then at that time, that was one of the big challenges for ski areas, is with the seasonal staff that were here just for 4 or 5 months, but then we're heading home or we're living in staff accommodation. That was a very challenging period for area operators. The second phase was also the care of our year-round staff and people. And this is where, I mean, thinking back now into March and April, an incredibly tense time of unknown, and I'm sure I'm speaking for everybody on the call. And it was very challenging, and this leads into one of the other themes, and one of the themes actually that our New Zealand and Australian partners referenced is what in English we refer to as mental health, or the stress that a lot of both staff but also managers, people on this call that are responsible for and care about really deeply, that mental load on senior management, but all people, definitely it took a toll, and it was challenging for a lot of leaders, a lot of managers. So that is also something that happened around that second phase, where we were talking about caring for our year-round people. Operationally, there was obviously the closure, wrapping up of the winter, and as Doug alluded to, then also reprioritizing the projects in terms of what plans ski areas had. Mm-hmm. And then the next phase was looking at operational plans. So there was both the operational plans for summer and then also the operational plans for winter. And so those started immediately in March and April. And as we alluded to before, there's been a lot of work around the world within the ski industry on developing those best practices. Looking forward, and we definitely draw, I think, inspiration and confidence on what we saw in Australia and New Zealand in terms of the ability to successfully operate ski areas in a pandemic. That's a good thing, and also learning from them. I think there's a confidence in the outdoor environment, but not surprisingly, things like parking lots, accommodation, indoor restaurants, those kinds of any indoor space are where the pinch points are, and managers of ski areas are spending a lot of time reorganizing their operational plans. Simultaneously, we're also communicating the preparedness of the ski industry to government officials as well as our public. And that kind of brings us into kind of where we are right now. And I'll just highlight 4 themes that are definitely occupying the industry. One of them is an education of the guest, and that the guests that are coming skiing and snowboarding, educating them to know that they can't expect the same operation. Things have changed. So educating the guests to research before they come, as well as also a sensitive area where educating the guests that they too have responsibilities. There we have, just as a cyclist on a highway rides and has responsibilities, our skiers and snowboarders also have responsibilities. And there is an obligation to follow those procedures, because ski areas have worked very hard to allow themselves to open for the winter. And everybody has a responsibility in allowing that to maintain, because if people don't follow the rules and there are outbreaks, then there's a risk of no skiing at all. So everybody has a responsibility, and we're going through a national education campaign starting next month on that front. The second part is around regulators and educating the governments and the health authorities about the procedures that government has, that the ski industry has taken. Interestingly, I would also suggest to our French colleagues and Swiss colleagues, the experience of the Southern Hemisphere and knowing that Australia and New Zealand had been successful has been very important in our communications with government. So I would encourage you to follow that. And again, the following with the guests is the expecting change. We saw this in the summertime, and one of the challenges for us, we as an industry in Western Canada, we are planning for, if we have international guests and the borders open, that's great, but we're planning for that not to be the case. So what we saw in the summertime was a high increase in local and regional traffic. So that means that for this winter, we're expecting higher traffic on the weekends and holidays, and not as much in the midweek period because we won't have as many international guests. So that brings us into really having to manage the capacities and educating our guests in advance so that they understand it's not the same and there will be different kinds of things. And the skiers will get into some of the examples of how we're communicating that with guests. So Kayleen, I'll stop there, and that's an overview for what we saw this past period and what we're in right now.
Okay, thank you, Christopher, for this analysis. And we have, just to quickly say, the same issues and the same similar data about last year and the COVID impact on our winter season about French ski resorts. The data was 80% of the global income has been done last year. So there was, the estimation was around 20% of loss due to COVID impact. So the main business was done thanks to the holidays, that were carried normally. We were lucky compared to Chile and New Zealand and Australian ski resorts, for example. But yeah, for the situation is the same. And we are just very worried about next season and about international frequentation as for the biggest ski resorts in France. They are very dependent of the international guests. This rate can be around 50 to 60% for the biggest one, as Three Valleys, Paradis Ski, and Espace Ski. And among these international guests, the Great Britain presentation is very important. And I don't know if you have seen the news that the Prime Minister of Great Britain has reinforced again the measures for the next 6 months. So we just hope that it will be okay for them to come in France. And maybe if they are authorized, maybe they will all come, as the measures will be very strict in Great Britain. We just hope that they will be authorized to come. Yeah, thank you. So we will talk about now the summer season quickly. And there was a question from Laurent Reynaud, the CEO of Domaine Skiable de France, which is the association of ski lift operators in France. And he was asking the balance in Western Canadian resorts between summer and winter activity. What is the repartition in terms of frequentation and in terms of income? Maybe Christopher, you can respond to this question.
Yeah, great question. Thank you. This will vary tremendously by ski areas. As an industry average for the ropeway operators, meaning the ski lift carriers, 10% of revenue comes through the summertime, 90% is in the wintertime. Now, if you're a hotel or accommodation operator in a destination, summer will increase. And there are also ski areas that have very strong summer or stronger summer operations than that percentage. But as an industry average, 10% is generated by summer.
Okay, thank you, Christopher. So we will begin. Kim, can you share what are you offering in summer? What are your main activities and characteristics? And what was your 2020 summer season highlight?
So because we are in a national park, our summer does look a little bit different than some of the other resorts in Western Canada. We focus on low impact activities such as sightseeing, hiking, and wildlife viewing. We run one lift which is a chairlift and gondola hybrid, a chondola. And we have a restaurant, an interpretive museum, and a few hiking trails at the top of the lift. The lift does go to mid-mountain at this stage, and then in the future, we're permitted to change our sightseeing operations so that we can go all the way to the top of the mountain, which will be a great improvement for our summer operations. The big difference between us and some of the other resorts in Western Canada is that we don't have any mountain biking because it's not deemed to be ecologically appropriate for a national park, since it can have impacts on vegetation and animals. Typically in summer, the majority of the visitors to Banff National Park that are interested in paying for sightseeing attractions such as ours are the international visitors. And Banff is typically very busy in the summer with millions of visitors, and they're just checking off their list of things to do, seeing the views, seeing the sights, going to the attractions. And what we offer is one of the best views in the park, a chance to get up the mountain for people that cannot hike up the mountain, and spectacular views of the mountains and the lake and glaciers. And we're also one of the best places to see wildlife in the national park. We have a lot of grizzly bears and black bears, and they hang out on our ski slopes and eat the vegetation. So a lot of visitors, the majority of visitors, do have the chance to see bears and other wildlife. In the future, we do have, as I mentioned, plans to increase our summer offering. We'll be building a new lodge at the top of the mountain with an interpretive center and a large network of hiking trails to offer quite a bit of opportunities in the alpine for visitors to Banff National Park. So turning to this past summer, operating in a COVID summer, we're quite pleased with how it went, though visitation was quite low due to the borders being closed and no international visitors. Mountain biking was huge across Western Canada, as Christopher alluded to, but we don't offer that. And so we did see some lower visitation. Actually, all of the tourist businesses and hotels in Banff National Park had slower season this year. Part of it was actually due to messaging by the National Park Service that local and regional visitors should just come to the park and be completely self-sufficient, come for the day, bring your own food, go for a hike, but then leave right away again. So there were a lot of people coming into the park, but that wasn't necessarily translating into revenue and income for hotel and attraction operators. We did see visitation pick up in August, which was great, but we also had lost a whole month of our summer season at the front end. Usually we'll open in May, but this year we were not permitted to open until later in June. And then we also, due to lower visitation numbers, we have closed 3 weeks earlier than we usually would have for the summer. What was great about this summer is that it did give us a chance to try out our COVID procedures, and they were very positively received by staff and guests. And we were able to keep all of our year-round staff employed, which was also very important to us. We had a lot of great comments from guests that they felt very safe, and as well, our team became a lot more comfortable with operating in a COVID world. And as a result, we all feel much more confident going into this winter, which I think is quite important, not only for our employees, but to gain the confidence of our skiing visitors and also governments, which is essential if we're going to be able to have a successful season and stay open. We did put into place pretty strict COVID safety protocols from the outset. Our procedures are the same as most places: distancing, sanitization, lots of cleaning, disinfecting of chairs and gondolas between riders, crowd management, masks and plexiglass barriers. Most of our summer operations were outside. Only 2 restaurants operate in the summer that are indoors. And so distancing was never any issue at all, which was great. That's, of course, going to change a little bit and become more challenging in the winter. So we do have some additional measures in place that we have to think very carefully about. For the summer, we conducted active health screening of guests. We asked every single guest when they arrived at the resorts a series of questions. Had they been around somebody who had tested positive for COVID? Are they feeling any symptoms? Because, however, of the increased number of visitors expected in the winter, it's not going to be practical to conduct active health screening. So we're going to have to move to passive screening. We don't want to, cause congestion by doing active screening. And so we're hoping that passive screening will be a good alternative. And we'll also move to mandatory face coverings for guests. We did see most guests wearing face coverings this summer, but because we were able to maintain not 2 meters of distancing, but 10, 20 meters between guests, we didn't have to enforce every single person wearing a mask outside, but that of course will be different this winter. So we've got a number of strategies that we've learned this summer that we can augment and develop as we move into the winter with safety at the forefront. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Kim. Thanks, Kim. So there's now Darcy next. Darcy, can you remind us what is the positioning of Sun Peaks Resort on summer, and how was 2020 summer season for you? Your microphone is not active.
Yeah, okay.
Okay,
thank you. So Sun Peaks is a purpose-built resort for year-round. We do a lot of summer business. Our normal summer business, which is very large in tour buses and groups this year, we went from 60, 70,000 visitors in that marketplace to 0. That was shut down by COVID. We opened late for summer. Normally we would open in early June for summer business. This year we didn't open until early July. Having said that, our summer businesses of mountain biking grew tremendously. You see the slide in front of you. Destination markets, this was as of May. Our destination markets were up over the winter, but completely disappeared in the summer. It was really regional drive and local markets that we saw. Our golf business, our mountain bike business is growing exponentially for us. We've had a mountain bike park for 21 years, and it really seems to, in the last 3 to 5 years, that market, the technology has developed to the point where it's more readily available for other people, and safety measures and things like that. It's really growing. We also do a lot of hiking, and we have, go next slide, please. And so there's a summer golf picture for you. We have 18 holes. It's one of our key summer amenities. Go to the next slide. This is a Mountain Flower Festival that runs for about 3 weeks every summer. The top of the mountain is a riot of natural flowers, and that's taken in the alpine meadows up above. That's another key summer factor. And the next picture is a part of our mountain bike park. We expect to invest much more and grow the mountain bike business even more rapidly than it has the last couple of years. And so what else happened in the summer? Our food and beverages, because of the prohibition on seats inside and social distance, physical distancing, those kind of things, food and beverage businesses suffered this summer unless we could get them outside. And we were fairly successful with that later in the summer, but it was impossible to make up for the early summer. Our accommodation businesses, because we were more a drive business, our hotels especially, had a slow start and never really picked up. Probably our occupancy rates in the summer would have been down about 50% from normal. Again, and the market mix changed for accommodation. People were looking for condominiums and places where they could cocoon with their family and not be in a hotel room with other people sharing a hallway and things like that. So there's a lot of safety factors on that. So hotel and accommodation got hit hard, especially because of those factors, and the destination business not being available to come to Canada with the borders closed. Some of the things that we did that worked particularly well is in the spring we went out as a mountain operating company and developed a consistent signage and protocols package, and went to our community leadership and community groups and said, here's the signage program. We designed it, we laid it out, we took their input, we hired the designer to produce the signs, and then everybody, and we paid for all that stuff, and then the rest of the community could use the same signage that we were. And so you saw consistent signage and consistent protocol applications throughout our village. That helped a lot in the early going for people to be comfortable. And we're going to do the same thing in the wintertime. We're just going to expand that program and move on working with it. It cost the mountain a little bit of money on it, but it's overall, it was really good for the whole community. So that's the big initiative there. We went to staff mandatory masks in about a month after opening in August. We will continue that. We will also, we can't mandate masks in British Columbia. No way for us to enforce that in our property and things like that. Private property people can, but the mountain is a lease arrangement with the provincial government. So there's some complications with that. But we're going to use an education approach and have everybody indoors. We're respectfully requesting everyone to wear masks, and anywhere we can't maintain physical distancing of the 2 meters, we'll go masks. We're doing with our staff. We've now got automated screening devices. They're no touch. People check in, check out. They go through a mandatory answering of the protocol questions. Have you been ill? This, that. Their temperature is checked. It scans them into the payroll system and out of the payroll system. And all that stuff is automated, no touch. We did not have RFID systems on the mountain. We're now putting in an RFID system to control. And one big thing we'll talk about going forward is winter plans. We'll speak about that later. Thank you very much, Colleen.
Thanks, Darcy, for sharing your summer tendencies. I think in all the resorts proposing mountain bike, there was a big increase from the demand. In the French ski resorts, the e-bike tendency is very, very big. It's not only in the mountain resorts, but it's all everywhere in France. The demand is very important, and above all in the mountains, as it makes it more accessible for normal people to practice mountain biking in the resorts, as it's very steep. Okay, thanks, Darcy. Now, can you, André, share what are you doing during summer, and how was this summer specifically in Montagne?
Yes, for sure. So our summer season normally operates from mid-June until October. And luckily for us, with a later start date, we were able to open as planned. There was certainly lots of uncertainty from when we closed to when we were going to reopen. And we took all that time to prepare and to do lots of review to ensure that we'd be ready. I'm happy to say that we are operating. We're currently operating. We're going to be operating until mid-October, so closing at the normal season. Our visitation has been affected significantly. We're seeing about 50% of normal visitation in August. June and July were quite low to start off. It seemed that guests were very apprehensive to get out there, but as the weather improved and people got comfortable with being outside and doing activities, we saw our numbers increase. Via Ferrata was a great activity for our guests. Our normal group size would be 8 people. We were reduced down to 4. And people were arriving in their own vehicle. They're arriving as their own cohort. And they felt comfortable and safe on our mountain. That was one of the key things that we tried to do, was to ensure that our staff were feeling safe at work, making sure that they were happy and comfortable with the things we were doing so that they could come to work and feel confident about the product we were offering. And then secondly, for our guests, making them feel safe as well. For us, obviously, as all the other operators here, summer is not as busy, so it was a lot easier to wrap our heads around it and get used to it. And it's really helped us build our confidence in preparation for the winter time. So some of the key things that we did is that we obviously worked very closely with the local provincial government on reviewing all the new procedures in place and the new requests that they had put for us. Canada West Skier Association also prepared some documentation. So we took all this information in, and then we started preparing our operating guidelines. We completed an internal assessment of the products we were offering. We really looked at the worst case scenario as well, like what happens if we have an outbreak? Can we keep operating? What can we operate? And we felt happy that we were able to still have a business. Worst case scenario, we would have run only Via Ferrata. We might have shut down other amenities. Luckily, that's not been the case. We've been able to operate our sightseeing, our restaurants, and the Via Ferrata all summer to date. We made all the similar changes as everyone else by putting up guards for our staff, providing them with masks and PPE, extra sanitization of all our buildings, cleaning throughout the day, rental gear. So with our Via Ferrata harnesses and helmets, using products that were approved by the manufacturers so that they could have turnaround times. We have been washing harnesses in between each use. Once again, luckily for the turnover from one day to the next, it provided us with enough time to do that. And our staff, we set them up with everything they needed to get this job done. And it certainly wasn't an easy operating season. There was a lot more things to be done. But I think because we took the time to ensure the safety protocols were in place, they were pleased. They were really happy to be out here working, and the guests that we saw were happy to be here as well. We did many more frequent meetings. We met as a management team way more often than normal, so that we could follow up with everyone and make sure that they were feeling comfortable with the measures that were in place. And that was very helpful because often things would be brought up that we hadn't thought about, and the frontline workers were able to share that information. So really pleased with well, not really pleased with having more frequent meetings, but they were very helpful to keep us feeling confident about the products we were offering. We did minimal discounting. We didn't reduce our prices significantly. We offered, obviously, by reducing capacity, we were already reducing our revenue significantly. So we kept all the pricing the same. We didn't do any special COVID discounts or anything like that. We worked with the provincial authorities on securing some marketing funds. So we did a lot more marketing that we've done in the past, and we're able to get some funds to help pay for that. So that was very helpful. And overall, we're just really pleased that we were able to operate this summer. And like Kim said, is test all these new procedures and protocols so that we can build our confidence moving towards the winter months, and feel very comfortable that we will be opening in less than a few months now, and providing that activity that many of our guests have told us already that they're keen. They want to come out skiing, and we'll be here to offer those products and services for them. So that sums it up for our summer operating here at NORQUAY this
Okay, thank you, Andre. Doug from Whistler, can you share the situation? Yeah.
You could leave it on this slide for a few minutes. So summer's big business for us in Whistler, and typically we roll right from skiing and we shut one mountain and we stay skiing on. Just can go back to the slide, that's fine.
Oh, sorry.
I'm just going to chat for a bit. So we just stay and ski on Whistler Mountain. We reduce our operation, which we ski right through to the third week of May, and then we transition to our summer bike park, which starts about the second week of May, depending on how much snow we have. That runs right through October, into the middle of October. So we're operating today. Same with our sightseeing. We run, this is the peak to peak. We run 3 gondolas. There's 2 other gondolas that connect to this lift. We also run on the horizon in that picture. There's an alpine lift, and we've got a suspension bridge and a skywalk and a Via Ferrata up there, and extensive hiking trail network throughout Whistler BLACKCOMB in the summertime. So it's big business for us. And obviously with the effects of COVID, it was a huge impact for us going out of the gates. And so moving into the summer, we really wanted to get it right. And we spent a lot of time working on plans just to bring back our staff safely. And that took a tremendous amount of time and energy across the enterprise. We were sharing our ideas with other resorts within the Ville Resorts network, coming up with best practices, how to do it, like how to have a meeting in a locker room. What does social distancing look like? You know, and we built our foundation before we could break out into our summer business. We built this foundation of things that we thought were important. And, you know, if you flip to the next slide, you can see some of the you know, aggressive safety measures that we did put in place that maybe, you know, were not in keeping with what was going on in the resort of Whistler, because we came out pretty strongly saying we're going to wear facial coverings. All our guests are going to, and our staff are doing it. We're doing daily health checks. It's still not necessarily consistent within our community here, but definitely the feedback from our guests, and this is really about consumer confidence, right? For us, it's about letting people know that the business of skiing or being in the mountains, riding in gondolas or coming biking or even thinking about the winter, that we can do this safely together. And these things were foundational for us, that we came out and we did receive a lot of positive feedback around it. You know, lots of our guests were very open and candid with us and appreciated our safety efforts. So I just think it spurs on the efforts that we're all doing. And I do think, you know, Christopher, we talked a little bit about it yesterday at our board meeting for Canada West, was it's really important that we express to the guests the changes to expect when they come skiing or being in our mountains, as well as the expectation we have on our guests when they come. And because we're all kind of in this together. And the last thing we want to do is have outbreaks in ski resorts, and it impacts all of our business. So, you know, there's a laundry list of things that we're all doing here, but first and foremost, it's founded in safety for not only for our staff that are here working together and behind the scenes, whether doing lift maintenance or line work or riding in trucks, like all of these things needed to be figured out so we could support our daily operations. So, you know, it was a big impact, continues to be a big impact. And obviously we're going to talk a little bit our strategies towards winter, but it was a summer like no other. And we wanted to get it right, and we did not want to, we wanted to continue to instill confidence in our business. And that was our motivation for the summer. I think you're on mute.
Kayleen, you're on mute.
You're on mute, Kayleen. We all do it all the time.
Okay, thanks. Sorry. So thanks, Doug. Christopher, maybe you can make a very quick summary about 2020 summer season in the resort. And there was, above all, one question which is maybe more interesting to respond to. Someone was asking what strategy are developing Canadian ski resorts to position themselves as a four-season vacation destination. Yeah.
I'll quickly touch on them to make sure we've got more time for winter coming up. In terms of the summer plan, not to repeat anything, but concur with everything that was just presented, but recognizing that in summer, and I think, Colleen, the same experience was in France and Switzerland, we definitely saw without the international guest, the marketplace change. So ski areas that were highly dependent on the international market, there wasn't that revenue. Those that were able to, what we did see were government and health authorities supporting going outside. And when we look at bicycle sales, biking and hiking as activities in the summertime, we saw that at ski areas as well, in terms of people looking for those activities from the local market, or the regional market. So while there was activity and people coming up from those markets, the spend in the destination was different, as well as, again, we're talking about the activity operators like a ropeway saw a visitation, but the accommodation sector did not. And so the marketplace is still very hesitant to book a hotel room, like Darcy said earlier, and stay there. Larger condominiums or pensions seem to be more popular than a hotel room. So there's a big difference between activity operator and accommodation. And as we go into the winter, we're cognizant of that. In terms of the summer destination and development of summer, just very quickly, a couple of key things. One is from a resort ownership perspective, asset utilization, being able to have people utilizing chairlifts, staying in accommodation, eating at restaurants at the destination on a 12-month basis is of course preferred. And the other thing from an operator perspective is it allows retention of employees. In Canada, it is challenging to find enough people to work at ski areas. And if you can create a year-round destination where you're then offering people a 12-month-a-year career professional position, that is a good way of retaining staff, attracting staff, as well as creating a community. So I'll leave it at that because we should get into winter.
Okay, thank you, Christopher. So now we're a bit too late on our timing, so we need to go on roundtable number 3, which is maybe the most interesting for everyone. And so it is about next season. There were already several questions from Laurent Domaine-Skiable de France, French ski areas, French ski operators. He was asking if the Canadian employers may test the staff for COVID for next winter. And the other question was, as their resorts have issued very severe protocol for next winter, they published a lot of things. Are all the North American resorts in the same case? Are you in the same line? This was one question. Is there someone who wants to react?
Very quickly, I can tell you that testing will vary based on jurisdiction. Many ski areas are doing temperature checks for employees, but it will vary based on jurisdiction and ski area.
Okay.
Yeah, in Whistler, we do, daily health checks for our staff, temperature checks prior to coming to work. They're to report if they're not feeling well prior to coming to work. It's definitely the first step in protecting our own staff and our guests, is that initial test.
I would remind people that in Canada, this is Darcy Alexander talking, that we have a public health care system. And our public health care system has severe limits on what you can do for private health care inside our country. Private companies such as ourselves do not have access to the testing capability to do that. So we have to do the wellness checks that Doug was referring to, and the temperature checks and other things. And if there are suspected cases, we have to have those people go to public health. That's the only way we can handle the test component.
Yeah.
In Alberta, in our province, they have just stopped offering asymptomatic testing. So that's testing of people that don't have any COVID symptoms. So that will not be available to us or our staff going forward. What we have had a few staff undergo is testing with symptoms, for example, a sore throat. We haven't had any positive COVID cases, which is great, but the only testing that is available to us now, as of a few days ago actually, will be testing for people with symptoms unless the provincial government changes their mind again. So what we are going to be doing is continuing on with our daily health screening of staff, and then supporting staff if they need to get tested because they might have symptoms. And we've also got in place quite a detailed and comprehensive plan if any staff have to isolate because they do test positive. Then we've got isolation units in place. We've got procedures set up for meal delivery. We've got a wide range of considerations around that. So while we can't test staff before they start working, we have other mechanisms that we can use.
Thanks, Kim. Maybe Kim, you can continue and share your thoughts about next winter. You made one slide to explain what you are planning to do for next winter.
Sure. So our strategy for the winter has been first to really identify the areas that we're going to have challenges operating while in a COVID environment. It's going to be quite a bit different from the summer because we are going to have a lot more people at the resort. One of our challenges that we foresee is trying to reduce and get rid of the natural congestion that develops in certain areas of our ski area. For us, that's our base area lodges at certain times of the day on our busiest days, which are Saturdays and holidays, as well as our rental shop and our restaurants, in particular our cafeteria and quick service restaurants. So in addition to, I think others are planning to talk about how to attack the ebbs and flows of midweek versus weekend visitation. And so I'll focus on trying to reduce that congestion. So we're not going to start out the season with a reservation system. We've got well over 4,000 acres and a lot of room for people to spread out once they are on the mountain. So we do, of course, think it's very important to plan for all of the possible scenarios, and we might need to implement a reservation system, particularly in the unlikely event that borders do open up, but we're going to start without a system. We are looking at, however, possibly having a reservation system for our buses. So to reduce congestion, we have a number of things that we're planning on doing. It starts before the ski season even begins with our season pass distribution. For whatever reason, our pass holders love to come to the resort to pick up their passes in person. So we're really encouraging people not to do that this year. We'll be mailing out the vast majority of our passes so that people can go directly to the lift when they arrive and don't have to stop and pick up their season pass. We'll also be adding additional indoor spaces, temporary structures like tents, so that people have more room to eat lunch. We can maintain distancing between tables. Our provincial government mandates that in restaurant scenarios, there must be 2 meters between tables, which of course reduces our indoor capacity greatly. So we're going to be adding more space, having outdoor heaters, heated tents, just so that people can spread out more. We're also looking at how to turn over tables more quickly in restaurants and in the cafeteria spaces, adjusting our menu items, having online ordering and table service for cafeterias instead of people having to line up to get their food and pay, and controlling our access to lodges so that it's not a lot of people trying to get in at once at the lunch rush. We're also going to be spreading people out throughout the day, working with our ski clubs so that they come in for lunch before and after the main lunch rush, just basically pre-planning more and communicating with the customers and various groups of customers so that people know what to expect and know when they can come into the lodges and when they should be out on the mountain skiing. In addition to attack the lineups that develop in the morning on busy days, we are looking at possibly opening our lifts early to get people up the mountain and out of the base area so that we spread out the arrival times at the resort rather than having a big mass of people come in all at once. One thing that is great for us this year is we are opening up a new terrain pod. We've got 480 acres called West Bowl. It's just contiguous to our existing terrain on the west side of our mountain. And so we'll be opening that up. So we'll have more room for people to spread out once on the mountain. So that will be great. Focusing a lot on online ticket sales. Not looking right now at reducing ticket sales or cutting off ticket sales, but of course that is an option that we have to implement if we need to. And just being honest and transparent with customers, telling customers what are the busy days. If you want to ski on a day where it's not going to be as busy, come midweek, come these days. A lot more communication and frequent communication with customers and just honest honest communication. People expect that and people want to know what's going on. So we are cautiously optimistic about the winter, but it is important that, for us anyway, that we start off very strong with respect to our COVID mitigations, continuing the distancing, the sanitization, the cleaning, the masks, all of the various mitigations and measures that we've all put in place over the past few months. And just start off strong so that we can get the confidence from the consumer and from our governments, municipal governments, provincial governments, and federal governments. For our lift lines naturally spread out because people can easily stay 2 meters apart. But there was a question about gondola capacity. What we are planning to do is we're not going to mandate that anybody ride the gondola with other groups. Alberta Health Services, which is our health governing board, has indicated that we can move to that on busy days if necessary, as long as people are wearing face coverings. That might be something that we are implementing on busy days, but we're not going to put any guests in the uncomfortable situation. If that's not something that they feel comfortable with, they can ride only with the people that they came with. So we've got a variety of strategies, and we're really focusing on reducing those pinch points that we typically see to spread out our people all over the mountain rather than congregate in certain areas at certain times of day. Thanks.
Thanks, Kim. And André, for NORQUAY, what can you say? What's the plan? What are the issues and the strategy for next winter?
Yeah, for sure. I saw a question there about events and ski racing and how we're going to handle those things. So that's one of our key strategies is to work with the groups that we can have a bit more control over, such as ski clubs and races and events. We've reviewed all our events to begin with, and we've slashed a lot of them. So many of our events are being canceled because we know that they'll be difficult to operate. We are considering still some ski racing events, and we've been working closely with the PSOs, the provincial authorities that set up the racing programs, to try and shift them to weekdays as much as possible, or to shift them to non-peak weekends. We all have the ability to track when our busiest times are, and I think being able to reduce those peaks in the season will really help us to have a good control on the crowding. The provincial authorities have also, along with Canada West, are reaching out to all the racing programs and giving them a lot of guidelines and procedures and some protocols in place, such as, show up to the ski resort ready to ski, so you spend the least amount of time in the lodges. Maybe consider starting off earlier, only doing a half day if you're training. So, we're all thinking about ways to manage those crowds so that we have the ability to continue to allow the general public to use our ski areas as they always have in the past. One of the questions earlier on too is on the reservation systems, and we've seen some things come out in the North American ski industry that are fairly strict, letting people or only allowing people to reserve a space to go skiing. So far, we feel that we could manage our visitation by not having a reservation system. Worst case scenario, if things tighten down or we have major outbreaks and we have to really reduce our capacity, there are things that we would consider. But for now, we're hoping that by managing our peaks, we can allow seasons pass holders to use the resort at their leisure, and also, as Kim stated, we're obviously asking people to come out midweek and at non-peak season as well. We've learned a lot from our summer operating, and we're going to refine those policies and PPE and everything that we need to do. We will be making face masks mandatory. I think it's a stance that our industry has taken. If distancing cannot be achieved, so 2-meter distancing can't occur, we'll be hoping that our guests will be wearing masks inside all our facilities, outside when distancing can't be maintained. Another big one is obviously communication strategies with our guests, with our staff internally. Many of our staff members are asking us, what happens if one guy gets sick on one lift? So these are all serious things that we have to make sure that we're not shutting down our businesses once we get open. So it's definitely nothing that we can all have an answer for, but we're going to try and do everything we can to inform our guests, inform our staff, and give them all the tools they need so that we can keep our season going. Because like all of you, I can't wait to get out skiing. I want to be able to ski all winter this year. I don't want to have to close anytime. So we're all learning this as we go. So having these kinds of opportunities to share and discuss it, I think, is always really beneficial and helpful. I've been really pleased to be a part of many of these conversations. I think it's really helped me plan for the winter for our resort here. And obviously, we're going to do the best we can. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Andre. Yes, I wasn't thinking about, but yeah, listening both you, there will be for sure a big issue with the locals and the ski clubs, the competitors, the athletes. We don't think about first, but during all the holidays, the competitors and the ski club use all the stadium. So how we will manage them? How will be the ski resort able to keep the activity and to enable them to train as they need it, as the competition won't be all cancelled. So we will see. Doug, for Whistler, can you share the situation and your strategy for next winter?
Sure. You can flip to the next slide. Thanks. So I think that top line mostly says it all, right? It's to safely stay open all season long and not impact our business. And I think we all share that, and that's what we're here for today, is to share this. When we were building our plans, it was a safety first approach. We definitely kind of wanted to be upfront, and we're willing to put our stance around this. And so we did announce, opening on the 27th of August. We went out there and talked about all the Vail resorts, properties and opening dates and how we were going to do it, and continue on with all of these safety measures and best practices we've developed. As well as we were out front with what it's going to look like for loading gondolas and chairlifts, and put an opinion out there so the guests could decide, and providing that information to the guests up front was definitely a priority. And just to be candid, also we did, and this is Vail's strategy around this is the pass holder gets they're definitely a priority in the decision making. So we are implementing a reservation system. We've already kind of rolled that out to most of our guests who are pass holders. It's on our website. We're communicating how it works and what are the important components of it, so that once again, that the guest has got it's within their control to kind of manage some of the expectations. They kind of know what they're getting into as well. They can control it. And as an operator, being able to know how many people are coming on any given day is going to be beneficial. So we can either staff for it, right? And so we can flex with that. So it's very important in our mind that, given the size and the number of skiers that we can give on any given day, when we do get snow or during the holidays, we're anticipating we're going to be having these pinch points like everybody's talked about already today. In our gondolas, in the base areas, in our restaurants, whether you're going to get rental skis, all of these things are going to be pinch points for us. But being able to get out front and book that is going to help us be prepared when they come, and try to build a lot of flexibility in that reservation system. With the borders closed, being a destination resort, obviously it's a big impact. It was really nice to see British Columbians and Albertans, ski regionally, recreate regionally this summer. It was very strong. And we're anticipating strong, visitation in skiing, because I think it's one of those things we can all safely do, get outside and participate in. And that's one of those things we can all, that we're lucky we're in this position as an industry where it's a sport, where it's outside mostly, and, you know, it's healthy. And like Andre said, like, they're going to have to change a little bit, bring their lunch, not expect to sit down for an hour and a half in one of our lodges. And it's going to just be a different experience. But the core of our business and the skiing component, we're lucky that we can actually do that safely, collectively, all of us. So, you know, that's where we're at. You know, we're going to continue to refine and improve our, you know, how we do this and mitigate it, whether it's working with our local clubs, ski school programs, the times when they show up, when we're coming. All of these conversations are kind of happening right now so that we can get some control into when everybody shows up and where they're showing up, at what base area they're going to show up, so that we can mitigate some of this. This will be the most challenging component of our winter. You're on mute again.
Thanks, Doug. Sorry. Thanks, Doug. So there was Darcy. You told that you had a big work for last summer on signage with your community. I guess you will continue. You will go on this work. And what are the other tasks? What's the strategy for next winter for St. Peaks?
I thought we might be running out of time, so I throw a couple comments on the chat line for people to look at as well. I won't repeat what other people have said, where there's a lot of good things in there. One thing from and I threw it on the chat line as well, from a summer experience perspective, we had an outbreak in a key lift operations group last summer. And what that taught us was we can rapidly lose a whole bunch of people because they'll have to isolate while they get tested. And so one of the things we're going to be doing for this winter is creating teams and pods of people that work quasi-independently of each other as much as we can, so that in case one pod has a COVID-19 positive test and all the rest have to isolate, we have other pods of people we can bring in and we'll be able to operate our business. I think that's a key learning. It's going to be problematic in terms of for us at Sun Peaks this year. Staff accommodation is going to be a problem, because with the new rules from our WorkSafe rules from our provincial government, only one person is allowed per accommodation room for the winter. That's going to be a challenge for us, and we're working our way around that. And you know, the peak times question is, I have to reinforce that. We're going to physically restrict the number of people on the mountain at one time. We are not going to, you know, we're going to probably allow around 75 to 80% of our previous peak days, and that's where we're going to cut it off. We're not going to do that with a reservation system, as some others have. We've chosen to go with limiting our total season pass sales, which we've already cut off for the year, and we'll be limiting day tickets, and we will be selling them online in advance. And I suspect for peak times, those will all be sold out in advance. We did that our summer mountain bike and hiking operation. It worked very well. So there's a lot of pieces going on. I see a question on there about how big are the pods. The pods are as small as you can keep them, in all honesty. And it really depends on your personal operation, what that means. For example, on us, a critical pod is mountain safety guys, ski patrol, we call it here in Canada. We tried to keep those to 6 to 8 people as a group, and so limit the exposure. So that's just one example. You'll have differences in your lift operations and what kind of lifts you run and all that kind of stuff. We do not have a gondola. We have a bubble chair. But we have a large lift capacity. We can transport between 12,000 14,000 people an hour. I can't remember the exact number off my head, but that's far greater hourly capacity than our daily maximum. So our issue is not going to be on the mountain, and it won't be for most ski areas. The issue will be, as others have lined it out, is those base area facilities your restaurants, your retail, your rental, your food and beverage. And I'll throw another one in there, but nobody's consciously mentioned is washroom facilities. We will be putting in a bunch of extra temporary washroom facilities that you can access from the outside without going through another building. You'll be just in and out of a washroom facility. We'll be putting those out and around our mountain as much as we can for the winter.
Yeah. We're doing the same in Whistler.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of common stuff here and a lot of good ideas. Thanks everybody for sharing. I appreciate the ability to have these discussions and learn from each other.
Thanks, Darcy. Thanks to all of you for sharing your situation and your strategy for next winter. We are late on timing. It's time to finish. So I suggest to conclude on the final roundtable very quickly. It was just to finish on the positive note, on the perspective, how was the future, how to face our issues in a long-term perspective, what are the main projects, and what are the tendencies and the trends about innovation development. Kim and Andre and Doug, you made some slides, but I think we haven't enough time. Maybe we can everyone can just share, very quickly what will be the main strategy, what is the vision and in the long-term perspective. Is it okay for you? Doug, maybe you can begin.
Sure. I mean, I think for us, it's, we kind of want to protect today to ensure our future, right? Like that's more important for us right now. So we're not, a little more reserved on our future plans. We have extensive master plan opportunities, that we can lever into, but it's really about just being able to, stay open, see this through, rebuild our business, rebuild consumer confidence. There's definitely trends. And I think it's good to see, I think even our regional, and we probably see that everywhere, is our regional guests coming back to recreating in the mountains. So that's a positive trend, whether it's biking or hopefully it's going to be skiing. But I'm hopeful to see our business continue to grow once we get on the other side of COVID.
Thanks, Doug. Kim?
Yeah, we're cautiously optimistic about the future. This winter obviously is going to be very challenging, but a lot of it does depend on not eroding the guest experience too much and still offering them fun, enjoyable times, even though it is going to look different, and of course, keeping safety at the forefront all of the time. Our future investment, we are still planning for our projects that have been approved in our master plan. It's a really exciting time for the Lake Louise ski area. We've got up to 10 lifts approved in 2 phases of our master plan, quite a few new lodges and indoor space. And it's something that we are looking forward to. Of course, it does depend on how this winter goes because the pace of that maybe slow down a bit, but we'll just see. So key is confidence from our guests and keeping open safely this season, and hopefully the future is bright, and maybe even we'll be able to develop some new skiers this year due to the fact that people are looking for new activities outside.
Thanks, Kim. Andre?
Yeah, so what we're seeing for the future is likely some of these changes are going to stay in place. Some of the new things we're putting in place now are things that we may need to continue to consider for years to come in some of our long-term planning. We're also, specifically for us here at NORQUAY, we're continuing to work on our long-term projects, things that will help us be ready to have our international tourists return. We have a solid plan on trying to work out ways to reduce greenhouse gas emissions at our ski resort and to work closely with being in a national park to restore ecological integrity and provide those experiences that the future tourists will be looking for. So we really need to think hard about that and how it all fits together. And we're excited to have some good plans and keep working on them.
Thanks, Andre. Darcy?
We have aggressive growth plans in both summer and winter operations. We expect to grow in our business in the next decade 50%, basically. So it's pretty aggressive for us. But I have to agree with Doug in the short term. And I echo the comments of Kim and Andre that right now what we need to prove to people is the mountains are a safe and fun place to be, and especially our resorts. So our focus in the near term will be to accomplish that this winter and continue to reinforce that in our guest base. This winter for us in the central British Columbia area and probably in Canada, it will probably be a regional drive market. I don't know that our destination guests from the United States and Europe are going to be able to get here very easily, north from the Southern Hemisphere, Australia, New Zealand, places like that. So we're going to be in a different marketplace. But if we're successful in staying open and keeping people safe this summer, that will be a huge benefit for us in the future. And then we can keep on track with our growth plans for the future. If we stumble this winter, it could cause growth problems for the whole industry. So that's my take on it. We're gonna put in a superhuman effort this summer to make it work, and leading into the winter. We had a very good summer. Our stuff worked well then. We're confident we can do it in the winter. And thanks everybody for the opportunity to contribute.
Thanks. And last, Doug? Your microphone.
I already spoke on our kind of where we're hoping to go, but I think the new business, the new skier, that is the opportunity for us. I think for all of us, for our industry, is re-engaging with people and showing our sport. That's a safe sport. It's a great sport to get out and enjoy the outdoors.
And Whistler's probably been at the forefront of the mountain bike business for the last decade in North America and maybe the world. And I have to say that I think that's a business. There's long been a question in our business about skiing in the wintertime is equal to what in the summer. And sometimes the question was 10 different whats. I think a big part of that answer in the immediate term is going to be the growth of mountain biking, which has been huge, and I think will continue to be so, because I think it's crossed the bridge from a elite sport to a basically publicly available sport, much like skiing did 40, 50 years ago. And I think mountain biking's a big thing, and I think it's going to be a big thing in the whole world.
Yeah, we didn't actually impact our capital expansion program this summer with our bike park. We actually continued to expand the trail network, and we still are working out there today. And we have plans for next year to continue to grow that business and broaden the experience. Really, it's really trying to go after the family, and prove to the industry that this is a viable business to use our assets with the terrain that we have. So yeah, it's pretty exciting to see that continue to grow.
Yeah, we did the same at Sun Peaks. We had a chairlift planned for construction. We built a chairlift and we built a whole bunch of mountain bike trail enhancements, and we're working on them today, and we'll be starting work on them when the snow flies. We have to stop, but as soon as the snow is gone in the spring, we'll be back working on mountain bike expansion.
Thank you. For sure, all the resorts throughout the world have common and big issues, big challenges to face, but they can be transformed into opportunities as a summer activity. We have in France a big issue, a big topic, which is sustainable development. Because of the climate change, we need to diversify our economy and change little by little our economic and business model. as we are too much dependent on winter. So the fall season development is an ideal. For now, it's more about 2 seasons. It depends on the characteristic of the result, as some results are too much high, have not the ideal assets to develop as compared to other ones who are lower the summer season. There's, for example, Val Thorens. Maybe you know this resort, which is the highest in France, and it's pretty difficult for them to develop some activity, but it is in their strategy. Another topic is about energy, how to save energy, to consume better. So there are some projects to implement solar panels, for example, on the ski lifts, and how to diversify the activity of the ski resorts and not to be only tourism destination and tourism territories. The crises have shown that our mountains can be really perfect environment to work, where to work. So there are some resorts very close to some towns who are developing some co-working areas, and it's interesting to see these strategies. Another issue is how to renew our customers, same issue than yours, because the customers in France is aging more and more. So we need really to have more and more young people, and to have more domestic and national customers as well. Yeah, and we have other projects about ski lifts to link cities, lowlands to mountains in the same, strategy to.
You're on mute.
Can you hear me?
There you go.
Now.
Yeah, sorry, I was connected with my phone, but it doesn't work anymore. So it's a conclusion. Thanks to all for your participation. Thanks Doug, Andre, Darcy, Kim, and Christopher for your intervention. It was, I think, very interesting and a great experience, a great moment to share for everyone. It's important, I believe, in these hard times to share information and to keep contact. So we will do it with other international results. And I think the next one, it will be interesting to have other international results in the panels, maybe to share between results from other countries. I hope that it was okay for everyone to understand my English, as I am French. It's always difficult. Thanks for your participation, and maybe see you at other webinar and events, and the next conference, if maintained, in CWSAA Congress next year. I hope so. Okay, see you soon, I hope, and thanks. Bye.